we are ready to start with this panel session. So welcome once more to this panel, the first panel session of the conference of the 12th International Microwave Vehicle Conference 2021. And I'm thrilled to have with us Professor Ben Chen from the Chinese University of Hong Kong and Professor Simon Watkins from the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology. And they are going to talk about their experience in organizing the IMAVs in the years of 2016 and 2018. We had a third panelist, Abdul Ghani Mohammed, who couldn't make it, unfortunately, but Simon is going to represent him and talk on behalf of both of them. So let me begin by introducing Professor Ben Chen. He is currently a professor of mechanical and automation engineering at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. He was a provost chair professor in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the National University of Singapore before joining CUHK in 2018. He was an assistant professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering at the State University of New York at Stony Brook in 1992 to 1993. His current research interests are in unmanned systems, robot control, and control applications. Dr. Chen is a fellow of the IEEE and fellow of the Academy of Engineering in Singapore. He has authored and co-authored about 500 journal and conference research papers and a dozen research monographs in control theory and applications, unmanned systems, and financial market modeling. He had served on the editorial boards of a dozen of international journals, including Automatica and IEEE Transactions on Automatic Control. He currently serves as an editor-in-chief of Unmanned Systems, one of the journals that collaborates with the IMAV conference, by the way. And Dr. Chen has received a number of research awards. His research team has actively participated in the international UAV competitions and won many championships in the contests. Thank you, Professor Ben, for being here with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me now introduce Professor Simon Watkins, who is a professor of engineering at RMIT, the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, and was chair of the IMAV held at RMIT in 2018. He was listed in the top 2% of scientists in the world in 2019 in the field of aerospace and aeronautics, based on Stanford University standardized citation metrics, and wrote some of the first papers on atmospheric winds and micro-air vehicles. He founded the RMIT Unmanned Aircraft Systems research team, which comprises a multidisciplinary group of senior academics, research fellows, and PhD students. His current research interest is bird and insect flight and trying to reveal the methods by which they maintain steady flight in the turbulent outdoor wind. Thank you, Professor Watkins, for being here today with us.
Thank you.
And I forgot to mention that Professor Chen organized the IMAV 2016 in Beijing, China. Okay, so this is really a relaxed panel. I didn't want to impose a strict format. Also, I have some questions for you. But before going into the questions, I would ask you to share a very brief presentation, or long if you want, to talk about your experience with the IMAV that you organized at that time. So we could begin with you first, Professor Chen. I will stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Let me share my screen first. Yeah, I was try my best. Can you see enough?
Just a minute. It is black at the moment. No.
You want?
There we are.
Okay, so there will be delay. Let me share also the song also. Let me see here. Share the computer song. Okay.
I think you need to go. Yeah, there you are. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so thank you very much, Jose, once again for inviting me to share this IMAV 2016 to the audience. And it's my great honor, actually. So the IMAV 2016 was held in Beijing's Institute of Technology. Actually, I'm just one of the co-author because everything was done by Professor Jie Chen from the university. Professor Jie Chen now actually is the president of Tongji University in Shanghai. I was with the National University of Singapore. Now I moved to Hong Kong. So it's, things have been changed quite a lot. Yeah, I actually would like to briefly go through what we have in IMAV 2016. These are the teams we have. Actually, we have quite a number of teams. We have 10 teams for the outdoor competitions and 13 teams for the indoor competitions from all over the place. And it was a big gathering. I think Jose, you was there, right? Yeah, I saw your
Yes, that's
picture.
correct.
Yeah, I don't know. Simon, were you there in 2016 in Beijing?
No, I would have loved to have made it, but we sent some of our PhD students, Sam Pruden, instead.
Yeah,
Next
sorry
time.
to miss you. Okay, I will show you a couple of videos later on. So basically in 2016, the competition for both indoor and outdoors, I think the themes for the competitions are search and rescue. So basically the involvement you can see on the screen. So the tasks are to do some search and rescue for some disasters, both for indoor and outdoors. I will show the video. I think that the video will be showing a much clearer pictures later on. So instead of going through all the details, I will just show in this video I created last night. I don't know how much actually you guys can see through the internet. So this is the whole picture captured by Beijing Institute of Technology. And I also had something. So that was the opening ceremony in Kyoto. Okay, all this committee member was there. My teacher. This is Professor Jie Chen. And this is first. This is one of the keynote speaker. Kyoto was also the keynote speaker. This was preparation for the competition. I think this is indoor or outdoor. This is the president of the university. This kind of demonstration from the hobby manufacturers, Thunderstone, Thunder Tigers from Taiwan, and this video was taken during the competition. This is for the indoor competition. Indoor champion, indoor runner-up, or say that the third place, outdoor champion, runner-up, and the third place. And I also include some photos just for fun. That was just for fun. We have a dinner at the Peking Duck restaurant. Okay, so that actually is basically summarize what actually have in the IMAV 2016. And I like actually, because the things was on the search and rescue, so I like to show a video of one of the guy who actually have been involved in IMAV for many times. Dr. Lin Feng, she used to work at the Temasek lab at the National University of Singapore. I like to show a very brief video on a drone he is creating, just for fun. That was taken during the typhoons, thunderstorms, raining day. Actually, it will take a few moments. Video. So this drone is I think it's ideal for the search and rescue. Pretty better conditions, and this was. And it can turn upside down automatically on the screen. So that is the end of my presentation for today for the time being. Yeah. So Jose, that is all for my part at this moment. So I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Ben. That's quite impressive, that last video.
Thank you.
Yeah. So okay, let's go with Professor Simon. So please go ahead.
Thanks. I'll attempt to share my screen now. Hopefully this will all work. Ben, I like that last video, and it reminds me of work we're doing with a company called Little Ripper, who have now got a commercial product out to spot sharks off the coast of Australia, because that's a particular problem. And it's now doing a good job spotting sharks and warning people to stay away.
Okay.
Can you see my screen okay, Jose?
Yeah, we can see.
I
If I can go to full screen. Computer says no. Let's see. I think it will come to full screen in a minute. Yeah, so we held IMAV 2018. And of course, we were very lucky because it was pre-COVID. No, it's been very challenging.
Simon, can you actually swap your display? We are seeing another different screen now.
Oh. Yeah. Let me just say.
On the display setting, I think you can swap that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that better?
Yeah, much better.
So yeah, my apologies. Thanks for spotting that. So we held our IMAV in 3 different venues. So This is the centre of Melbourne, which is where our university is placed. And that's where we had our some of the conferences, conference talks, and we also had a meal in the aquarium, which people, I think, liked because they could see sharks in the same way that the drones can spot sharks now, but they're behind glass. So we had people from all over the world. I do apologise for my flippant map. So many different teams from a wide range of places converged on Melbourne, Australia. We had some keynote talks. This is Anya Jones, who's the Presidential Young Defence Scientist of the Year a few years ago from America. And I think this was the first time that she threw this type of micro air vehicle. It's, of course, a boomerang. And one of the takeaways in the gift pack were these IMAV boomerangs. I don't know if they're still existing around the world, but arguably that's the first micro air vehicle globally. Incidentally, as I talked in my opening talk for the conference, the Australians think that the Aboriginals have the patent on the boomerang and were the first in the world, but they weren't. Because in fact, one of the teams was from a country that did have the first boomerang or evidence of the first boomerang in the world. And that's from Poland. And it was a boomerang functioned many thousands of years ago from a mammoth bone. But anyway, there we go. So micro air vehicles have been around for a long time. I don't know if this is going to work. Ooh, it's not going to work. I had the video which I'd linked and worked in my slide, but feel free to copy that. And there's an overview video. Let me see if I can try to make it work. This may not work. Let's see. It does not seem to want to. Oh, wait, here we go. This might work. This is really pushing my technology. Just jump back. Incidentally, can you see now a paper that says 10 questions concerning the use of drones in the urban environment?
I got it. I got the paper. Also, I cannot see. Sorry, I just have the cover. I cannot see the PDF.
Okay, so I know that you had posed a number of questions regarding IMAV and the use of micro air vehicles. We were asked to do a review on that, so with a number of authors. So we wrote that paper where we posed 10 questions and we attempted to answer the 10 questions. So there's quite a lot in there in terms of answers for some of the problems. For example, we talk about noise, the perception of noise, safety, reliability, and things. So feel free to have a look at that paper in terms of questions. Let me now go back to my presentation. And so I cannot seem to get that to run. I do apologize. So in summary, for our IMAV, we had 3 venues: an outdoor venue, which was a search and rescue venue. That's available. The video of all that is on YouTube. And we tried to search for things in the bush. And that was interesting because one of the special challenges in Australia are some of the animals, not just sharks, but in the bush that we were using, there were tiger snakes, which are the 4th most venomous snake in the world. So you want to make sure that you see them with a drone before you stand on them. We had 150 people or a bit more in attendance. We gave 2 practice days for the outdoor venue and 3 competition days. So one day was devoted to really what we've been looking at for quite a long time, which is gusts. And to do that, we actually had a fly through in the wind tunnel where we generated turbulence in the wind tunnel. And we had a series of decreasingly small hoops, which the drones were attempting to fly through, and also to perch on the side or even the roof, but certainly the floor of the wind tunnel. So those were the competitions. There were the normal prizes and things. We generally had pretty good weather. It was very warm at that time of the year in Australia, over 30 degrees. And we also were challenged by one large thunderstorm. There's a list of some of the main keynotes. Anya Jones, who I mentioned, Shane Windsor, who's our collaborator on our US Air Force funded research looking at bird work, and I can talk and show you some videos about that if people are interested a bit later. Jennifer Palmer, who's in charge of unmanned air vehicles for our defence, and Reese Clothier, who's president of our UAS group and is also a senior researcher at Boeing working on unmanned air vehicles. So there's a snapshot. I apologize that the video didn't work. I could possibly give it one
Simon,
more.
if you want, I can play it for you. I have it already on.
Oh, great. Look, that would be fantastic. If you do that, that would be really appreciated.
So if you stop sharing,
yep.
I can show it, and then you can talk about it. So
yeah, sure.
There we go.
Great.
You must be seeing it.
Excellent.
There you are.
Thank you. So what we're looking at here is the outdoor competition. The setup of the outdoor competition. Here's one of the better things, which is vertical takeoff. Here we're in the indoor competition. And for that competition, you flew from still air, through some windows, around some poles. Now we're in the wind tunnel, and those green hoops you had to fly through whilst there was quite turbulent air, so representative of the gusts that you would see in the atmospheric boundary there. So what the team there are trying to do is to go through smaller and smaller hoops, getting to windier and windier competitions, so gustier and gustier conditions. Some of them did it spectacularly well, and there's one of the competitions where we're following a path, so following the white rope that's on the floor that leads into it. Here we see, I think we probably all know this this team. So here we see a version of the Delphi. Incidentally, one of the questions that hasn't really been, or one of the challenges that hasn't really been forthcoming despite a lot of funding and a lot of research over the years, is flapping propulsion. Still challenged with endurance and probably gusts. And here you see the commercially available black Hornet used by many defence countries, or many countries' defence teams around the world. And of course, that's been developed by Peter Van Muren's company, and it was very, very successful, as you'd expect, in that challenge. So thanks very much for enabling that, Jose, much appreciated.
Great, it's a very nice video.
Thank you.
And yeah, in general, it was a very nice event, both of them. And before we pass to the questions, I would like to say that our first IMAV experience was indeed in China in 2016. I think so far we have been the only Mexican team to attend the IMAV. And then we went to France, to Toulouse. And then I went to Melbourne. We only attended the conference. That at that time, we couldn't make it for the competitions, but we went to present 4 papers, I remember. And that's when we bid for the organization of the IMAV 2020. So it was a very, very nice experience. It has been a very nice experience, and that's why I thought it would be useful for the audience to get to know about this international competition, which I think personally is quite unique. So I have a number of questions, but I'm not sure if you want to discuss a specific challenge that you have from the top of your head. Maybe Simon, if you would like to discuss something before I pass into these questions. I think you really have very interesting things to say, so please go ahead.
Well, thanks, really. Probably I'll just mention some of the things that are detailed a bit more in that 10 questions paper. But one of the things that we've been focusing on is on people's perception and noise. Noise is a particular challenge when we're looking at deliveries. And so for the vast 100 years of aviation, the aviation's always been a long way away, and it's been at an airport behind a fence, and it's been thousands of feet away from the majority of people. But of course now, with various trials, including in Australia, Wings trialing for several years, delivery of pizzas and other things, not so much in the city centre, because that's very confounding with all of the the urban clutter, the buildings, the wires, the trees, and of course quite a noisy electromagnetic and GPS challenged environment. But around this around the suburbs of Canberra, the capital city in Australia, and there have been so many complaints about noise. And noise is a very subjective thing. And my examples about noise are, well, imagine that you're a bit of a drone enthusiast, you like pizza, and so you're waiting for your pizza to be delivered by drone. The best noise you will hear is the noise of that drone approaching. But if you are a neighbor and you don't particularly like pizza or drones, the worst noise you will hear is that drone approaching. And in some of the noise conferences I've been to, there is very much now the feeling that noise cannot be disassociated from the other feelings. And this perception by people is important, and it can vary, you know, if it's a negative perception because of noise, it can really close down every drone operation in the area. And that's going to be a considerable challenge. So noise I raise and people's perception, and to a certain extent, not so much for the smaller ones, but for the large drones, reliability. So Uber taxis are trying to trial in Melbourne. It's one of the 3 cities globally that they were thinking about trialing in. But you have to ask the question. So if you land in your international airport and you have possibly 3 ways of getting to the city centre, there'll be a train, there'll be a bus, and in the future it may be an automated bus or an automated car, or it might be an Uber taxi. Which are you going to take, and what are your perceptions of reliability for those? You've flown internationally on an aircraft and systems that are incredibly reliable. You know, 1 in 10 to the 5 types of failure, lots of fail-safe. But now with urban taxis, possibly automated urban taxis, are you going to expect the same level of reliability for the flight that's taken you across the Atlantic or the Pacific for this little local hop? And it will be a little local hop because endurance is obviously another challenge with electric fueled or charged drones. So I think those are some of the issues. I did at one stage suggest that we broaden the question to think about the role of IMAV in a post-COVID world. So our conference and competition, and also possibly even the role of universities. Now, I've talked at length with our Vice Chancellor about the role of universities in a post-COVID world. He has some very interesting thoughts about it. They tend to concur with mine, and that with information being instant, global and free, pretty much on the internet, then the role of universities and the role of conferences are being challenged. Let's be frank, the role of publishers are being challenged. The role of the bean counters, the business people in universities and newspapers are all being challenged. Their business models are blown away. But the thing to me that makes them continually relevant is the personal side. And I think if universities are purely going to go online, then they will be seen perhaps as conferences as a kind of overpriced digital club. And I don't think we want to be overpriced digital clubs. So I think the competitions in particular, I've been involved with competitions, including Formula SA racing car competitions. They're the real things that drive motivation and enthusiasm and bring people together. So I would suggest that whatever we do, we still try to keep competitions in IMAV and in universities. Otherwise, we may disappear into that overpriced digital club, and we'll have less people prepared to pay money for things that they can get instant, global, and free by other means. So there's my little spiel. I don't know if other people want to. I could later on, if people are interested, show some of the work that we've been doing with instrumented birds gliding continuously in our wind tunnel subject to gusts. If people are interested, I've got a little bit on that, but I think probably I'll be interested in other people's thoughts and questions. So thanks for the opportunity.
No, thank you, Simon. I think you said something that is very important. Maybe people will forget about the typical models for education and the way we do business, because now with all these virtual modes, people are very comfortable at home, working from home. But if you have something tangible, such as a competition where you have to be in the field, you have to do things, and you see things, so you get quite a nice experience. And I'm not sure any virtual environment is going to provide that. So we have to see what is going to happen. But I would like to hear what Ben thinks about that.
Okay, thank
please,
you very much. Yeah.
And do a controversy.
Yeah, actually, I like to follow up what Simon had just said about the noise of drones. Actually, this is one of the topics we are doing here at CUHK, because we are actually have a project ongoing on counter UAV using this acoustic sensor to detect the noise. And to us, for this project, we like the noise. If you don't have noise, we won't be able to detect the drone. Yeah, that is one thing. And I like just also to briefly highlight our involvement in IMAV. Actually, my team from NUS was first attend IMAV competition in TU Delft in 2014. And we have actually been going all these competitions, except in the one held by Simons in Melbourne, because that was the transition period for me from Singapore to Hong Kong. I think this competition is very useful because for me, for myself, and I use these competitions as a testing bed and also training for the students. And Jose, to be frank to you, I have prepared for this competition, and I'm up. We call 2019, right? At the beginning, now it's 2021. Actually, so I think we have been doing this, and I have a team about 50 people just preparing for our IMAV this time. But unfortunately, you know what is going on. So you actually are under a lot of pressures these days. So actually, I think it's very useful because a lot of the algorithms, technologies we develop can be tested in the real environments like IMAV, because in the lab it's different story. You can always choose some the ideal situation or the best scenarios for testing, but for competition it's different. It's good for training students, and also I think it's good to learn each other from other teams. That is the things we have benefit a lot, like we build up our friendship with other team, and also we learn a lot from the different teams worldwide. I think that is what I feel about this competition. And I think, and I just replied to you, Simon, about this ICUAS, ICUAS, like US. I think that this will be a trend because people are more up for this kind of competition. We should carry on this one because this is our flagship and also trademark. Without competition, this IMF conference, you know, for say actually we were just an ordinary international conference. That's more sport. Yeah, but I think for the competition part, IMF have it's quite well known worldwide.
So, but then what do you think about what Simon said regarding post-COVID era? So what are your thoughts on then? Because after COVID, what I can see is that people have changed. Maybe people will get afraid of, going out, or people might prefer to stay at home and do things, they might prefer conferences, virtual conferences. So what is going to happen to competitions? We know that they are interesting because we went through that process, but what about the new generations? Please tell us.
Well, actually, I can only express my own opinion. I hope this COVID-19 is to be over very soon. I just cannot actually handle this anymore. But I think this COVID-19, eventually, I think our life will have to be getting back to normal. And look, those people in America, I think they don't care, right? Yeah, actually, if you look NBA or American football games, they are full of, the whole stadium was full of people without face masks. I think that sooner or later, hope we will getting back to the normal life. I cannot stay if we keep doing this or the life going on like this forever. That will be disaster, not competition. I think the whole life is meaningless. To me, I hope that this will be the last year for this COVID-19.
Don't forget where I'm sitting here in Melbourne has had the world's longest lockdown. Yes. So I can certainly, and when we got some relative freedom just 2 weeks ago, it was great to be able to go out to restaurants and see friends again. And the government in Melbourne has promised that there are going to be no more sort of statewide lockdowns, and they will be small and focused. And I think if you look at the way that China has essentially eradicated COVID, if you look at the number of cases in China, in 1.4 billion people, there's like 100 or something, and they will be from international travelers, but they have fairly harsh local lockdowns. So I think local lockdowns are going to be with us as a way for trying to squash things for a while. But as more and more people get vaccinated and more drugs come out, I hold out a great deal of hope that we will go back to having international competitions and flights and so forth. We may still have some local lockdowns, and here's hoping it doesn't happen locally, just at an IMAV competition, but hopefully not. So yeah, I'm enjoying my freedom after what was it, 167 days or something like that. In fact, my whole house has been turned into an office and a workshop and a television studio because I've been teaching people online, including students in China, which has been interesting.
Sure, right. Well, now that you are speaking, Simon, there was somebody from the audience, from the YouTube channel, somebody called Alfredo, and he says, what is the motivation for creating a challenge with a wind turbine in the IMAV 2018 competition?
So inspection of wind turbines has been ongoing a bit, with companies looking at not just wind turbines, but for maintenance, to check for faults and things, and even try to have a closer look at the blades. That's interesting. The other bit of work that we've been doing, as some of you are aware, is increasingly to use drones as flying anemometers. So we've got 4-hole probes that can measure UVW 90-degree cone of acceptance, which is what you might need if you're hovering in strong winds and the wind has got a lot of pitch in your components about it, and you can fly through it. So we're also looking at trying to measure the winds at wind turbine locations. But the one thing that challenges is always endurance with electric powered drones. So it's, interesting. It would be quite difficult, I think, to have a competition. It's quite a relevant competition, but it would be quite difficult to have a competition around a real large wind turbine. But maybe inspection of rotating or moving things could be replicated in a competition. So yeah, interesting point. Wind turbines, obviously, very hot topic at the moment. Not just the sighting of them, so the overspeed regions typically that people try to choose to get more power out of them. Obviously, power is proportional to the velocity cubed, so it's really critical on the velocity. But also looking, as I mentioned, for maintenance and looking for problems with blades and things like that. Yeah, interesting thought.
Thank you, Simon. Once more, you mentioned something about autonomous cars. I think that is also quite a hot topic. But autonomous cars, especially, they are pushing for the use of artificial intelligence. They are relying quite a lot of artificial intelligence. And I am aware that drones are quite different in terms of the technology that we need for drones to fly. I always say that it's not that autonomous cars are easier to develop, but the great advantage is that they are on the ground, and I mean you might crash and that's it, right? It might be a very bad crash, but that's so far. Whereas a drone, many things could go wrong. So that's why this video that Ben showed, of this drone on the sea is quite impressive. But then, what is your stance regarding the use of artificial intelligence? How do you see it complementing the work that you do Because I understand your field is more in aeronautics.
Yeah, I think I'm not really competent to answer that question. I'm sure there are others in the audience who've got far more experience with artificial intelligence. Our university is putting up courses in artificial intelligence, which I'm gonna look at and not teach. So I think I might deflect that to other people. But of course, there are various very smart thinkers worrying about what can go wrong with artificial intelligence, and the Asimov laws in terms of that the computer, the robot, should never really harm us. But don't know, maybe time will tell. So I'll defer to others, I think, who've got much greater knowledge on that than myself.
Sure, but I think it's quite interesting from your point of view, because at some point I was watching also another keynotes, and especially it's where the specialists in that keynote were talking about that in aeronautics you have the questions, you have the models, you do your testing, and if something goes wrong, somehow what could go wrong in the model and you fix it. Whereas with artificial intelligence, at some point they are relying quite a lot on some sort of black box. And for instance, if you rely on artificial pilot, I'm not sure if if you would prefer that over a conventional pilot, that based on all these models that you work with. So I guess that's why I wanted you to give us your opinion.
A few years ago, I went to a conference organized by the Royal Aeronautical Society, which was to look at the last 150 years of aeronautics and to also peer into the next 50 years. And some of the keynote presentations there were on people's perception as to whether they will get into an unpiloted, as in not having a person up the pointy end of the plane, compared to autonomous planes. And it was interesting that the people least likely to get into an unpiloted plane were aging male pilots, people like me probably. And the people that were most accepting of getting in were the young. So the young had this acceptance of autonomy, but I was interested in that. And if you look at the stats, then it looks like the pilot error, even pilot suicide, unfortunately, is a major cause. So you could argue that it would be safer, but people have this perception. We're quite happy to get into one-dimensional autonomous vehicles, trains. We all do it at airports. We are less likely, or a bit more scared of two-dimensional autonomous vehicles, so cars, terrestrially based. And three-dimensional, there's a lot of dimensions to crash in. You've got a lot of possibilities, and especially if you're trying to navigate through increasing densities of high-rise buildings. So yeah, there's some big challenges there. Will I get into autonomous aircraft in my lifetime? Yeah, probably, if they're around. But of course, the big issues that come with autonomy is really looking at the reliability of those, and even working out how you're going to test for autonomous reliability. And getting back to the point I made previously, which is, okay, we're all happy with aircraft with enormous reliability, levels of reliability and safety, but yeah, don't know.
We have to see.
Okay, if this is where our micro is very good for testing things out, because we only have micro crashes in 3 dimensions.
Exactly. Okay, so what about you, Ben? Do you want to comment on that?
I'd like to add a bit, because actually my team is also working on the autonomous ground vehicles. I would say that actually if you are talking about merging this UGV into the normal traffic, that would be really a long way to go. But then actually I have a colleague here at UHK who are doing very well for a spin-off company. They are actually doing this autonomous vehicles for logistics application, like in this warehouse, in a control environment. So I think that is have a pretty big future for that. So it depends. Like UAV, actually, if we're talking about general application or UAVs for all this civilians application, I think it's still a very long way to go, because a lot of government like the IMAV, if we are doing IMAV competition in Beijing now, it's almost impossible. But we have done that 5 years ago. And because the government is tightening all this security measure. But then for UAV, my application now on UAV, for example, in Hong Kong, we are doing this drone with AI technology for building inspection, for bridge inspection. For this kind of environments, I think the security is less concerned, because we are basically doing in a very control or contains environment. So we actually have make sure that all this safety is not like what Simon has just mentioned, to be very, very 100% or almost 100% guarantee. But then for this kind of application, I think it should be okay. And for the application like what Lin from the video I shows, I think because the search rescue suppose is also already a disaster. I think the safety, of course, is a main concern, but then it's less important in that sense. I think it depends. We should find a way to apply our unmanned system I think will have to be fit into the system which they can accept now. It's very difficult to convince people. Yeah, but then for certain application, I think it should be okay. That
should be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think as soon as you have a human on board, I mean, it doesn't matter whether he's the pilot or not. It becomes a big risk, and then governments and companies, they should guarantee the safety of these human or humans. I went to a conference, an ICUS conference, where I saw a keynote, and they were talking about this issue of if you had a plane with a pilot and you had a plane with an artificial pilot, which one would you choose? So maybe we went to the same conference, Simon, I don't know, because it was a while ago. And I remember the person who was presenting said that people prefer to go on a plane with a pilot, I guess regardless the age, just because the pilot also wants to get home, right? So that was the reasoning. So I know the pilot wants to get home, therefore he won't do anything silly. And I rely on that. Whereas the artificial pilot, I don't know. He doesn't have a life, he doesn't have something waiting for this entity at home, right? So that was kind of the reasoning. So I found it very interesting. And I think that prevails today, right? It's quite difficult to convince people that an artificial entity will care about our well-being. But well, anyway, it's quite an interesting question. I think I know it's a tricky question, and I just wanted to make a bit of controversy. We don't have questions from the audience. Let me check quickly with the social networks. And perhaps in the meantime, as people want to make a question, I would like to ask you, to both of you, if you could share with us, what do you think could be a nice challenge for the IMAV event? You have organized IMAVs, you have designed these competitions, which I think were very, very nice. But I'm pretty sure that during all this time that we have been at home in lockdown, maybe you have the time to think of something that, yeah, maybe this is something nice to see in a competition. So please, we start with you, Ben. So what do you think could be a nice challenge?
Thank you very much. I think the big challenge in organizing a competition like IMAV is the logistic part, because we have been suffering. I don't know, we haven't told you guys. We have been suffering quite a lot in dealing with the government agents to allow people to bring the drones and this unmanned system into China. That was a big hurdle for us. And the rest, of course, you know, Simon knows, and Jose, you know now very well. Actually, the rest is very tedious, but it can be handled. But then for this kind of things, to be frank to you, I was planning to bring IMAV to Shenzhen, one of the area DJI, all these fancy high-tech company was having in this greater Bay Area. I don't know. I'm still thinking about it because after this COVID-19, I hope it's to be over soon. And I will still trying. Actually, I have been talking to people in Shenzhen whether they are interested in hosting this kind of event. Actually, a lot of people they like to have this, but I think Shenzhen should be in less trouble because they are more open and they are actually more. They welcome a lot of this kind of high-tech activities. So I will see. Yeah, I think logistics will be a big concern for me to think about whether to bid for the next one or not.
Okay, well, that is something regarding logistics, but what about the competition itself? What do you think would be something nice? What would you like to see for teams to address? Like what challenge?
The competition now, if you look at the competition they have worldwide, like DARPA, actually is you see this new technology evolve. Actually is they advance very fast. And for this competition we are having here, I think if we go moving ahead, we should not have any problem. You just for it's like for this example, they have this search and rescue in the very harsh environments. That would be a big challenge for the SLAM, for mapping, for drone platform. I think so that is we can always design some very challenging platform and competition. Like if you look at what DARPA is doing now, actually that it will be a model. We may not be able to duplicate or to follow everything, but at least it will be a good reference for us.
Great, thank you, Ben. What about you, Simon?
Yeah, I think as we use drones, micro air vehicles more and more in the urban environment, then Ben has already mentioned, sensing SLAM, which is obviously a key challenge if you've got a very cluttered environment and you've got a very noisy electromagnetic environment and GPS is not working very well and things like that. So that's obviously a big challenge which is going to continue into the future. I think probably I would be interested in seeing noise. So we had a small competition, but not many people entered as part of the IMAV that I chaired, and low noise I think is particularly interesting. Maybe even directionality of noise would be another one. So you can avoid the neighbors, but alert the person that's waiting for their pizza or whatever. And the other thing is certainly in cities, wind gusts, the very strong shear layers that you have to fly through when you're approaching tall buildings. Even under steady winds, you are going to perceive a gust as you go through the shear layers springing from the sides and the roof of the building. So those things, we looked at those in the competition in Melbourne, but I think those are still going to be ongoing challenges for bringing things into the urban environment. As Ben so rightly points out, for disasters, it doesn't matter too much. No one's going to worry about the noise. You already have a big problem, so you're focused on that. And if you're bringing antibiotics or whatever, I mean, that's just such a big bonus that you're not going to worry about the little trivialities of noise, but you will do in the city. And the wind gusts are going to be pretty challenging too. So.
Right, thank you. If I can just take that last bit about noise, because I guess everybody has seen all this deployment of several drones, like hundreds of drones to do fireworks, correct? Right? Like they want to replace fireworks with these drones. And I guess in that particular application, maybe noise, reduction of noise might be nice. I'm not sure. What do you think?
Oh, certainly. I mean, some of the work I did years ago with the car companies on psychoacoustics, you want your car to sound like that car. You want to be able to hear emergency vehicles behind you. You don't want complete silence. For some things, you do want complete silence. My example of the neighbors getting annoyed because drone deliveries in their precinct. But other times you want noise. And the noise of that very spectacular advertising multi-drone. I don't know if you saw that in China. You know, the noise is all part of it. Unfortunately, I don't know if you saw it too, that something went wrong and they all fell out of the sky and landed on people and cars and things. And luckily, they were relatively light, so that wasn't a problem. But you know, reliability is a problem. Reliability, I think, is an interesting challenge, and it's not the sort of thing that we can easily cope with for an IMAV competition. But reliability certainly is up there.
Great. Thank you, Simon. Then we are getting close to finishing this session. Before we finish, I just want to say how grateful I am for you to come here to make the effort. And I'm sorry, Ben, that it was 7 o'clock in the morning.
No problem, no problem.
But please, if you want to say a last message for our audience, please go ahead. We have 5 minutes.
Actually, talking about this light and musical UAV show, actually, it seems to be crazy in China. Now they are flying thousands of drones, not only 100. But I personally have a video taken at the backstage. If you would like to see it, it's a totally different story.
Yes, let's see reality.
I can share with you. It's totally different story. It's not as fun as those in the sky.
Okay, let me tell you this these 2 questions very quickly. Somebody finally asked something. Do you plan to do drone-based space mission tasks in future events? I don't know if you as researchers or as part of the IMAV, but do you want to say something about that?
Space mission, what does that mean? In outer
like
space?
Drone-based space mission tasks in future events.
Actually, I don't know. Let me just share what I'm doing here now. Actually, I'm a flying drone in a tunnel.
Oh,
that is what I'm doing. Actually, I will be talking to Hong Kong government's department next week. We are trying to fly a drones in the sewing tunnel for about 7.4 kilometers. It's a bit too long for a single drone. So we are thinking about using the drone I showed to you in the video. Actually, we can let the drone float for a while and then taking off occasionally if needed. So this kind of application is what I'm going to tackle in Hong Kong. I don't know about the general application. I think.
Mining companies in Australia are using drones to investigate mines, mapping and so forth. So there's a few companies. Mining is huge in Australia. It's unfortunately how we make most of our money, and there's a lot of funding around. And so yeah, trying to map out mines and sniff out, you know, poisonous gases and things is used a lot in Australia. So it may be similar to some of your tunnel. Endurance is always a problem.
Yeah, there are a lot of applications, I guess. Yeah.
Great. Well, having said that, thank you both. Really appreciate it that you managed to make it. I think it has been a splendid time. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I hope the public also enjoy getting to know more about these international events. And Ben is right. What makes IMAV unique, as Simon said it as well, is that we have the competitions, not only the conference. And usually the papers in the conference talk about the solutions implemented for the competitions also. So it was a nice thing. This is what I found when I began attending the IMAV. There is a last comment saying, can you run a competition that combines ground robots with drones? I guess, yes, we can always do that. It's a bit similar to what DARPA does. But well, thank you both. Again, we will send you a certificate of your participation, and I hope you can continue watching the rest of the conference. Thank you. Thank you both.
Sure.
Thanks very much. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, have a great conference and competition. Next time we'll be there in person.
I'm looking forward to that, Simon. Take care, Ben. Bye.